Welcome to the last session 3 of Google Suite. My name is Jessica LaRusso from Workplace Education Manitoba, and I'm so thrilled to have you here today. Before I introduce our instructor today, I'd like to review some features that you'll be using during your webinar today for some of the new people that have joined us. On top of your screen, there's 3 icons, of course, the emoji, the question, and the telephone. The emoji, of course, allows you to express some emotion as well as applause, happy faces, for example. And I know that a lot of you have given us a lot of happy faces and some applause as well. Also, please use that when your instructor asks for feedback. The question mark is the blue box. I know that a lot of us have asked questions, and if I see a question in the chat, I'll add that to the question box and your questions will be answered at the end of the session today. So feel free, when you do have a question, please put it in that blue box with the question mark icon. If you need to switch to the telephone for any reason, please do so with the telephone icon. Lastly, there's an option for you to chat, which we've used many times over, and your instructor will ask you questions, and please put your comments in that area as well. So I've also shared with you in the chat section 2 links to support, as well as my email address. So if you have any questions, I can answer them offline, and it's jlorusso@wem.mb.ca. And also I put my telephone number there for you to text. I will not answer my phone, so just text if you need it, but honestly, please email me, and that's actually quicker. Another thing is make sure you say hi and do a happy face emoji right now. Just know that you're there, ready to go, ready to learn. And I want to tell you all about Rochelle Amy. She has a very impressive professional career. I am just amazed with this lady. She's been engaged in education and student development since the year 2000, and she's taught university, K-12, and specializes in adult education. She's reigned in the nonprofit sector in administrative and marketing and communication. And she is an absolute amazing instructor in essential skills. And she's been with Workplace Education Manitoba since 2019. And the Interlake West Center is so very lucky to have her on their team. She also works with companies dealing with Microsoft and Google Suite. So this is why she's such a benefit today. On a personal note, and to give more value to her students, she went back to school to get her master's degree in leadership. So I'm very excited about that. So please help me welcome with that applause emoji, which you can locate at the top of your screen. And I am very excited to learn about the last session of Google Suite. I hope you are too. Rochelle, I'm happy to ask you. You have the screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Let's get our applause emoji for her. What would we do without her? Great to see you. Hey, thanks everyone for coming back. 3 days in a row. This time, same day, 3 days in a row. You guys are about the best learners ever, and I hope you share that with your WEM students that you encounter, that you yourself went back to school and did some continuing learning. I'm so proud of you. So we did talk about understanding Suite and products. We talked about Google Drive, and I do need to apologize for my redundancy that I keep saying go through the Drive portal. There's just 100 reasons why, and we can't cover them all in this 3-day session. But thank you for being patient with that and looking at how the products work and collaborating. And today is a fun one because it's tips and tricks and efficiencies. So some of these you may know already from your work in Microsoft products. Some of them just cross over to Google, and some just sort of show a fun component of what you can use in developing your documents and files. So let's jump in. We're going to look at tips and tricks for docs, for sheets, We do want to touch on converting PDFs and images, and that would lend well into going into the search capabilities in Drive because they are absolutely phenomenal. And if you've ever searched for a file just on your computer and seen how long it takes and the types of results you get, you'll be blown away when you start doing that in Drive. And then I want to touch on keeping your user IDs separate so that you don't make the same kind of frustrating mistakes I made when I first had to transition to the Google platform. So jumping right in to Google Docs, I know we mentioned this the other day, Save is gone. So this is a screenshot of inside Microsoft Word, and that feature is gone. So you're no longer doing the Control-S or the File Save or looking for that disk. And just a funny story you all might appreciate because maybe give me an emoji if any of you teach in a West Center in any way or teach digital literacy skills, digital technology that is. I have one West Center learner currently who was a little frustrated with Save and just sort of forgetting to save her work and not sure. And I said, well, it's that little floppy disk icon. And I sort of took a look at her age and realized I don't think she's ever even heard the word disk. I don't think she knows what it is. So I got to explain to her these disks and how they're basically like USBs. And she's like, oh, I know a flash drive. Yeah, okay, but floppy disk. So that's sort of humorous to me that Microsoft has never changed what that icon looks like. And the younger generation has absolutely no clue what that disk means. So anyway, one of the tips and tricks is just sort of forgetting that habit. You don't need to do any saving. It's done for you. Of course, the formatting shortcut tricks. These work in Microsoft also, your Control-B and Control-S and so on. Being able to quickly upsize and downsize text. These tools are so handy and can save you so much time to not reach for your mouse. I do find that in Google Docs, table of contents is pretty easy, and it does sort of like a hyperlink scenario. So I can just go to my insert, I can scroll down and do table of contents. And when I do that, as it sets up a table of contents for me, it creates those live links so that at the front of my document, if a learner's reading from my table of contents, they could click on any item and it'll pop them right down to that spot in the document. So it's a pretty fun little tool to have. My children love this one, and I'm trying to break the habit for them and give them keyboarding skills because I think keyboarding skills are like the key to peace of mind. But voice typing is actually super easy in Google. So it's up in the tools bar, and if you just click on tools and get that drop down arrow, you can click voice typing, a little microphone icon pops up, and you get to start speaking and it gets to start interpreting what you're saying. Unfortunately, the teachers have taught this at the middle school that one of my children goes to, and they're not teaching keyboarding. They're teaching them to do voice typing. So that's an interesting feature that we may want to explore just so that we're current on maybe where some of the data input is headed in the future. The Explore feature is pretty neat. When you're in a when you're in a Google Doc, at the very bottom, you'll always see this little star. And you'll see that also in Excel and in, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm talking about Microsoft today, but clearly you'll see that also in Google Sheets. And it does two different things. I love how it works in Google Docs. When you're in Google Docs and you hit that Explore feature, you get to go take a look at a bunch of things. And I had planned to only talk about that, but I actually want to show you. So I'm going to go into a screen share because it's kind of a cool little feature they have. So let's see. I will click share. Okay. So let's look at a Google Doc. When I'm working inside of a Google Doc, way down on the bottom right side of my screen, I have this little Explore button. It's just always there. You don't add it on, it's just there. If I click explore, I get options for all kinds of things. Now, this is used a lot for research. So maybe you're doing something on, here in the Interlake, we're developing a curriculum to help cashiers and people who are working with money. So we could be writing our curriculum right within this document, and then we can pop open the explore button. And let's say we need an image of a cashier. I could just search for cashier. And my first option is that I can just crawl the web. I can find all kinds of information and definitions and so on. I could choose some type of image, and it does go to common use first. There's another setting you could put on to make sure that the pictures are available for reuse. Or it can take me right into my drive. So I could find reference materials from my drive where I already have data. Sometimes that's handy actually for importing the company logo. Interestingly enough, the WEM logo doesn't pop up very easily in some of the online searches. So if you were to save it to your drive, you'd always have it there in the format you want. Or images that I want to enhance my presentation, or just general data from the internet. So the Explore tool is kind of a fun little tool that lets you experiment a little more with beefing up your presentations and your files. And I'm going to pop back over here. When we see that same button in Google Sheets, as we mentioned yesterday, it's not inclined just to take you to the web to do research. It's inclined to help you make a calculation. So if you're ever feeling lost, you're not looking for the help button in Sheets, you're looking for the explore button, and it's going to help you figure out, based on the cell you're in, here's the type of calculation that I think you're trying to find. Editing in Google Docs is super fun. So when you're invited into someone's document, for you to have power to decide whether you want to type right in that document or just add a comment or just view it, super cool thing. And actually, I had a little bit of conversation with one of our attendees today named Anne about that, and it was cool. She was able to collaborate with someone who lived far away and able to input into the document. And it's great to know how to control your input into that document. So maybe I don't want to touch it and mess up their formatting, but I do want to give them my feedback on that. I can always collaborate by giving a comment, and then it's hidden, it's not messing up their tabs and everything. And the reader can decide whether they want to keep my comment or just delete it and move on. We did talk about the template library yesterday, and of course a whole host of things. And how about an emoji to show me if any of you have children who are still in school? So anywhere from K to university, do you have anyone under your care that's still a learner? Couple yeses, couple nos. Well, the templates are brilliant. One of my children has discovered the templates. She's still putting in her own information, like for book studies and book reports and so on. But the templates have made her work look so polished that her teachers are just blown away. And she actually just got bonus marks last week for using a good-looking template, which blew my mind. I love keyboard shortcuts. So these exist in other brands also, but these are something I'd encourage you to just type out, glue it to the side of your monitor, practice it until you get fast with it. If you're doing a real technical type of document and you're needing to refer into the dictionary even, did you know there's the keyboard shortcut to call up the dictionary? And it'll work on the side of your screen just like that explore button worked, where it just pops up and you get to find out in live real time, never even leaving the window that you're in, all the dictionary info. So it's no longer going to another window or launching another program. You can do it right inside Google Docs if you have those keyboard shortcuts, which I just love. And the personal dictionary. Now, I don't think any of you knew me before I was married, I had a maiden name that was 12 letters long, and only 3 of those letters were vowels. So imagine, imagine getting stuck with that handle. Well, those types of things, or even a phrase like WEM, where they don't fit in the regular dictionary. With using that Tools tab, you can just go in and add a personal word into your dictionary so that Docs will no longer underline that as something that's misspelled, like it used to always do with my maiden name, or it would do if I were to use an acronym like WEM. It would recognize that it's wrong, it would underline it as a spelling error, and then when I'm doing my spell check, I would have to stop and ignore that. So instead, by using the personal dictionary in Docs, I set it up one time, and then every time I make any document, I have an exception to the rule. So it just practically looks like this inside. It pops up that extra window. You can add any word to it you want, like some of these common ones on display, that if you find there's just certain phrases that work within your organization, you add them in there and they'll work just fine. People's names and proper nouns is really key to save you time and spelling errors in the future if you go ahead and add them in. Working with images got really, really easy in Google Docs. So as soon as you take your left click button and touch your image, so you're clicking one time on it, you get image options available to you where you get to crop and resize, change the color, make it a watermark. You can completely modify your images right from within, and this used to be a separate function that you had to do in a different program, and they've moved it right into Docs. I love that. I use it all the time. It's also especially handy when you do that and you get that image into the perfect place in your document, and then you realize, oh, I've used this logo, but I should be using that logo. If by left clicking on that image and then right clicking to open up your secret menu of all your extra options, if you do the replace image from that place, it will make it the same size as what you had before, so you don't have to mess around with your formatting and your placeholders. And of course, like that extra window on the right shows, you could be choosing an image at that point from your computer, anything online, your own photo roll, or something saved on your drive. That's a quick run through in Docs. We won't spend as much time on Sheets, but something came to my mind after yesterday's session that might be helpful to see. So I think we'll talk about Sheets for a sec, and I'll do a quick screen share that wasn't in your notes here, and then we'll move on to the converting the PDFs. How are you guys doing? Are you awake out there? Hey, Diane wins a star. Give that woman a star. She's the first one. Good to see you. So within Google Sheets, it's probably the program that you most want to collaborate in because it's usually your tracking thing, your data collection thing, the place where you really need to share with other departments. So taking some time and just digging into that a little further in Google Sheets is something that would be really interesting for you. You can set up groups of people so that maybe you always share a certain document with the accounting department or so on. You can set up teams that you would share different things with. In your notes, you have some things like this with just so many awesome things you can do. And just at your leisure, sometime go through and just take a read through because you don't know what you don't know. And so maybe Sheets is functioning for you or Docs is functioning for you, but is there a trick that you don't really use that much that you could use? This is the spot where I thought, you know, touching on a little bit of our conversation yesterday, we could take a look at making Docs talk to Excel and Excel, or Sheets talk to Excel and Excel talk back to Sheets. And just to show you, because we were talking a little bit about loading things into Opal and using them more from our computer and onto our company network, we'd want to know we're not limited to just a Google format. So I'm going to pop back onto a screen share. And let me find it for you. Again, if I wanted to find something, I'm more prone to do two things. I would start on a Google homepage, or I would start with my Google Drive shortcut. So here again, I'm going to go back to that hockey spreadsheet that we looked at yesterday. And to get there, there's a few ways I could get there. My preferred method is going through the Drive. That way I get to see the things that come up that are most recent that I've looked at and organized in the folders that I like. So if I wanted to look at this children's hockey schedule again, and then I thought, well, maybe for whatever reason, I do not want to send this as a Google Doc, what are my options? Well, I've created it as a Google product or as a Google Sheet, but in fact, I have options where I can make that a Microsoft Excel document just with one click. Most commonly, we're converting things to PDFs so that people can't easily change our live document that we shared, and so it compresses it and sends it in an emailable way. But just by one click on Microsoft Excel, you can notice in the bottom of my screen, it's automatically creating a download that I'm going to be able to keep on my device. So this spreadsheet, you saw me get to it on my Drive, and it's stored in my cloud somewhere online. But by converting it, I was able to bring it down to my computer and have it saved here. Now, when I've asked it to convert it to a Microsoft Excel document, different versions of Excel will accept the information in different ways. In this case, you can see it accepted my font and basic styles, and so not a lot of changes. I don't have to accommodate a lot of adjusting. Some things that look a little different are my tabs at the bottom, for example, just the way it displays the shading. But the actual content and where things are totally compatible. So at this point, if I thought, hey, I'm about to get on the airplane and I want to work on this file in the Excel format and not have to be connected to the internet, here it is, and I just pick a home now where I can save it as whatever location that I want to have it. So if that's the case of taking my Google Sheets document and converting it to Excel, and that can move it onto my computer, what's the reverse of that? What are my options for taking my already established Excel files and having them in my Drive so that once I get on the airplane, I'm going to have those files at my other office in another city where I don't have my laptop with me? Well, in that case, I want to go into my Drive and I just want to add something new. I want to upload a file because it's not already in Drive. And you can see that it automatically takes me into all of my files. I can pick an Excel document and it moves it right into my Drive. So I have access to it now in a way I didn't have before. So when I open that, it tells me right away I'm in this view format because I don't have the ability to edit right now. I can't go in and start retyping. I have to open it in a program. This is like a preview that you first get. And it's telling me to open with Google Sheets. And maybe I'm scared to do that because I don't want to convert it to a sheet. I'm not going to be scared. I'm just opening it with a program that's going to let me type in it. And when I do that, then I still get a choice about whether I want that to be an Excel document or do I want that to be a Google Sheet. Now maybe my webinar is using up all my bandwidth, so it's taking a while to open this massive file. And this might look familiar to you if you work with our web curricula at all, because this is one of the spreadsheets that we give to our learners who are working on Excel. And I just wanted to point out to you, don't ever be afraid of uploading an Excel file up into your drive and then opening it with Google Sheets. It will not change anything, and that's evidenced right here. Hopefully you can see my mouse circling the file extension XLSX. And that's telling us that it is the Microsoft Excel formula and now, or format, and now no matter what I do within this file, unless I try to change it, it's going to stay an Excel file. So I've not converted it. My file's in perfect condition, and when I get back to the office, nothing's changed. I don't have to convert anything. All it means is I moved it. I took it from my actual computer and I loaded it up into the sky. I could change it if I wanted to. I could easily modify this to become a Google Sheet. But I think one of the questions that had come out yesterday is, what are the options of just keeping it as a Microsoft format? Google is very kind and accommodating, and they let you have your Microsoft format with no issues. I could choose to save it as a Google Sheet. I could choose to download it somewhere else in some other format. Those options still exist. But for as long as I keep this file in my drive, I can always keep it with this extension. It does not have to be converted. And I think a little bit of what we talked about yesterday might have made it seem like you have to convert it into Sheets. So I was just really keen on wanting to show you that you actually are not forced to. Are you with me? Hey, Josie wins the race this time, right on. So converting PDFs and images is super cool. That used to be a thing where you needed a special program to be able to do it. And Google's made it pretty darn easy to do. So we used to feel like this when we would get a PDF, because it would be a little bit of a panic. A colleague would unknowingly share us a file in a PDF format, and we would have to redo it, retype it, scan it, and just use it as its own thing. But now we can actually take that content and modify it. So to do that, we could start in our drive, and we could look at all the files, all the files that have that extension. So if I see that I search for PDFs, let's say, I could pick whichever one I want, and then I have options on what I want to open it with. Now I could install all kinds of extensions to my Google. So there's remember the 267 applications that we looked at? Well, to effectively, I could install all those extensions and ask all of my files to interact with 267 different products. Obviously, I don't want to do that. I keep my list simple. And so I could take a PDF and ask it to just convert it into a Google Doc. Now, what's so fun about this, and it is touched on in your homework, is that you can do this whether it's a PDF or a photo. So I could take a photograph on my smartphone. I could just walk up to a poster, take a picture of that poster, upload that to my Google Drive, and if I really wanted, the files sharing between my phone and my drive can be automatic. And so from my Google Drive, I could take that photo or a PDF, convert it into a Google Doc. If it's text heavy, it knows how to convert it into a text-rich document like Docs, where I can modify it. Now there's always formatting changes, always. So it's not quite the same as my Excel file that my Google Sheet could talk to Excel and I didn't lose any formatting. It's different from that. I will have to format and I will have to change, margins or type size and so on. But honestly, if there's something you like out there and you want to work with that information, take the PDF or take the JPEG photo and then turn it into something else. Now, it is worth saying we're not really covering copyright rules in this particular seminar, but copyright's a thing. So don't just randomly steal information and turn it into whatever you want. And don't take credit for someone else's work. But isn't that phenomenal? Like, I'm a lifelong learner, so I'm constantly taking pictures of quotes and things that I see out there. And to think that you could take them and collate them into a document or an Excel file that you like, good golly, this is amazing. I don't even know why anybody would care about having a special PDF program anymore. So you're just noticing that you have a certain file type, the PDF or the JPEG, and you're just choosing to open it with Google Docs, and within 10 seconds, it does all the work for you. So that whole idea of converting PDFs and images sort of lends well into the whole search functions of Google Drive. And really, before, it used to be that if you were searching for a certain word, you would be searching for a certain file name. And then searches got a little more advanced, and it would be able to find that word within a certain amount of file types, but it would just be seriously slow and bogged down. Well, Google sorta is really strong in this area. This is probably the reason people get away with being disorganized, because their search function is so amazing. So I've been pushing the whole Google Drive thing on you. Really, I should say, you could never use Google Drive and you would be able to find your documents, your pictures. You would be able to, because the search function is that amazing. I just talked about Google Drive last week with my husband. He's been using Google for years, and all kinds of manuals and photos and work documents and everything. And he actually never knew to go to drive.google.com. He had never accessed his drive. He would just go to Google and he'd sign in and he would do a search that would be taking him through his drive, but he never knew really to organize it or do anything with it. And his comment was like, man, I almost don't have to waste time getting organized because Google can find just about anything. Now, it does mention in your notes to try this, and if you've done this in the past, maybe wave at me, that you can actually ask Google to search for things that are not named that way. So, have you ever taken a picture of the CN Tower? If you have a photo of the CN Tower and it's saved into your Google profile, into your files, you can go right into this search bar and type in CN Tower, and it will search all of your documents, all of your file names, and all of your pictures, and find the CN Tower. And that image that you took, that photograph that you took of the CN Tower, you've never named it that. It's just named picture number 5024, and it's just you posing at the CN Tower. But that whole idea of Google having so much information and the whole recognition of data, it knows what the CN Tower looks like. And so it knows how to comb through all your pictures and find the one picture that has that. Google Photos is kind of cool too, and it does tie in with Google Drive. That same thing, that you can find a person's face. So it recognizes all the faces in your family or all the pictures that you've taken, and you could just say, hey, find all the pictures that have this face. So you click on that person's face, it does a search through everything, your photos and your files. It finds anywhere that that face has appeared, and it gives them all to you within seconds. I think the longest my search has ever taken is like 20 seconds, and it combs every file type and every image type. So I would encourage you to try that one out. Take a popular picture online. So example of the things we've learned today is we could open a new Google Doc, We could go down to that Explore feature in the bottom corner of our document. We could do a search for a picture of the Eiffel Tower, and we could save that picture of the Eiffel Tower into our document. We won't name our document Eiffel Tower. We won't say anything about it. In fact, we would just call our document random research. And then we'll close that and go into our Google Drive. And when we go in there and we type in Eiffel Tower, it is going to pick that up and find it for you, even though you never used the typed words Eiffel Tower. It's going to be able to find it for you. Slightly creepy, no? A little creepy, but handy when you need it. So that search function within your Drive, like I say, it's not limited to file type. It can search your PDFs, your documents, your spreadsheets. You could limit it and search only certain kinds of file types if you wanted, but it's unlimited. It can comb through everything, and it really doesn't take that long. Now, getting organized is the key. I'll use my husband as the bad example of a student where he just basically never did this. And I love this image. This is such a good one to see what can be done. So this is an example of a teacher's Google Drive. And the teacher initially made a bunch of folders. And so she had a folder for classroom, a folder for homework, one for math, and so on. Well, default settings in Google are twofold. One is your words and your files are just in gray. And secondly, please notice the left-hand column. It's all alphabetized. So C is at the top, W is at the bottom. Well, this teacher decided, I want to associate a color with everything. So with just one right click of the mouse on her folder within Google Drive, she was able to assign a color to classroom, and she made that one green. She made morning work purple, and probably the colors meant something to her. In my own Drive, they do. I have a folder for WEM, for example, and I have it color-coded the blue color that is in the WEM logo. And then for the other companies I work with, I have them color-coded in their particular colors. And I just find it's an easy, peaceful visual to have so that they all have their own color, and then you're not even actually reading the word every time you look at it. You just know you're clicking on blue or whatever have you. So the colors is sort of fun to add that in. But my other favorite, and I absolutely love doing this, I do this and I change this all the time, is I want my file folders in a certain order. So the ones that I'm working in most, or the ones that have to be done instantly, I pop those up to the top and I manipulate the alphabetical order that Google Drive imposes by adding a number to it. So in her case, she wanted, this teacher's case, she wanted all of her files in the order of how the subjects would happen through the day. So by adding the number 1 to morning work, that popped it to the top. And then putting a 2 in front of math, it came next. So you can basically override the alphabetical order just by adding numbers to it. And in fact, you could add, a 0, 1, or whatever. But I find I move around with this, or sometimes instead of a number, I'll add a Z. So some of my folders have the letter Z, and then a space, and then the word of what it is. And it'll still alphabetize them Z and then something else, but those are the folders I don't need to see all the time. And so they're popped way down on my list, and they're only there when I go looking for them. So take a little bit of time and just do this in your Google Drive. And if you like organization, are there any organizers out there? Like, can I get a witness? If you want to see something in a certain color, and then you can put them in whatever order you want. It's, oh, you guys are so organized. No wonder you're all Wemians. Of course you are. I love you guys. Oh, that's awesome. Well, in the last part that we want to cover, I just want to save you. I want to save you because no one saved me when I started this. And it's really about keeping your user IDs separate. So there is a reason why we talked about Google Drive so much, because if your Google Drive is organized and looks a certain way, actually you start to recognize which ID you're in. And so to sort of dig into that just a little bit, I am curious, in the attendee chat, could you maybe give me an idea of how many, just Gmail, only the Google brand, how many Gmail addresses do you have? 5 and 1 and 2 and 2, 1 and 1, okay. Okay, so I see Carrie, like you're just a total newbie, Carrie. Sorry, I told her I would pick on her. Carrie with just her 1, no. And someone's out there with a 5. And so I just want to say, hey, like Google's free, and Hotmail is too, or Yahoo, or whatever you want to use. But don't be shy about setting up some of your fake email addresses that you need. You had a phone number that you gave people in the bar, that fake phone number. That's sort of what you need with email, and and you can pick totally humorous names, like say Fuzzy Bunny Slippers, and those are the ones that you can give out to people when maybe you're entering a contest or have to give feedback for customer service or something. You don't want to give them your legitimate address. But once you start to do that and you have so many layers of emails, at that point, it's like, oh my gosh, where are things? Where are the different files? Well, that big oops is something I've survived and didn't love going through that. You always have an indicator in the top right-hand corner of your screen. So every time you're in Google, you have an indicator of who is signed into that account. So I know that I've assigned my look to be that letter R. I could have a selfie there. It could be a picture of my face. It could be a picture of my cat or my dog. It could be whatever I want. I've just chosen to have that random R, so I know that for my benign Gmail account that I don't use a whole lot, it's that. For my other Gmail account that I use in a different professional environment, I have a photo there, and the photo is my trigger symbol to know that that's the account I'm logged into. Now, if you were to click on that dot, you get a window that pops up giving you options, and it says, do you want to sign in another user? You can go ahead and do that. It's tricky to do it that way, and I just want to explain why. Basically what happens is when you first sign in to your Google account, when you're in a new window, you're in there as that first primary user that you've set yourself up as. Then if you go to that corner and you click in sign in another user, it'll ask you for your password for that other Gmail account, but it will just open a tab, and it's basically connecting the two accounts in a sense that you have to keep track of which tab you're in and working on. And so if you went to choose drive, how does it know which drive you want? Does it want the drive that's associated with the purple circle with the letter R in it? Or does it want the drive that's associated with the photograph that you have for your other account? So you can do it. It's possible to do it, absolutely, and it's relatively easy to do. However, if you're using it for work, you really don't ever want to be signed in to your Google account and choose add another email, because the next time you pop into your photos or your drive, you're going to get lost really quickly, and you might file share something with someone out of the wrong Gmail account. So I have a preferred method. I feel like it's totally foolproof. We use this at one of the offices I work at, and it's having desktop shortcuts. So on my desktop, I have 3 different Gmail accounts that I need to work through, and I could do them all in one window. I could, and have multiple tabs, but it is not peaceful. It's not a peaceful way to work, and it's not an efficient way to work. So instead, I have installed a Chrome shortcut to my desktop that's associated to one ID. So I go click on Rochelle at the bottom, and it opens the Rochelle that's connected to my work Gmail. And then if I go click on the other Chrome icon that I've attached to another user ID, it opens it in a totally separate window. So I can have two huge things going on. One window, that's my work account with 20 tabs and files open in my drive. And then behind it, I could have another whole window open with a totally separate identity where there too, I'm working with all my files and my drive. And so you don't have to do this. I just want to suggest this to you as an option, that in the whole idea of having a Chrome shortcut on your desktop, if you have multiple ones that you leave logged into different accounts, I feel like it will be peace on earth, goodwill to all mankind. It will make your life peaceful. And just a little tip, if you share a computer with maybe even people at home, maybe your kids have accounts, or your husband has an account, or your spouse, or whomever, if they have their own ID like this, where they enter through that portal, it's a little handier. And one of the side benefits of that is actually that your Google account also connects to YouTube. So probably, maybe you've never heard of Stephen Sharer or Ireland Brothers. These are two big YouTubers apparently that appeal to 8-year-olds. Well, one of my kids loves to watch the Ireland Brothers or whatever, and Dude Perfect, all of these. I don't want these showing up in my YouTube feed of my recently watched videos and my favorites and my subscriptions. I don't want those, but those automatically show up because they're connected to whoever was signed in to a Google account when they went and looked at that. So that's just like total side benefit of if you use the separate portals to get in, if you use separate Chrome entries into your ID, you don't end up with the garbage of what other people are subscribing to on YouTube and other channels like that. That's a simple process, and you can even Google how to do that when we leave here today, but you have a settings feature through those 3 little dots. So those are separate from the whole waffle feature. You're not going into waffle to try to do this. You're going into your settings to do this. And I'm just curious, now I would ask this to other learners. I'm not going to put WEM on the spot and make WEM suffer through answers. But this is the question I ask other people. What kind of time are you allotted in your work time to be able to do some learning and to be able to do some things? And I guess I just want to challenge us to think that some of the learning time we do, it's valuable time, and we underestimate ourselves that we should already know it. It shouldn't take time to have to do this. Technology is supposed to be easy, but give yourself that margin in your workspace to be able to apply some of the new tips and tricks. And so maybe you're used to just using your mouse, and your mouse, you take it and you go to the top of the screen and you click bold. You click on the B to make your text bold when you want to use it. Well, give yourself a little bit of learning time in your workplace where you've put Control plus B equals bold, and you have that on a little post-it note and it's stuck on the corner of your screen. And so now when you're working in your documents, you decide, I'm not going to have to use my mouse anymore. I can keep my hands on the keyboard. I'm typing away, and I want to type, hey, Jessica is awesome. And when I get to the word awesome, I want to make that bold. I don't lift my hands off the keyboard. I just hit Control B, I write awesome, and then I hit Control B to make the bolding turn off again, and I keep going. And there's times that we can just give ourselves that little bit of space to add a new trick to whatever it is we're doing. I'm a little bit of a techie phobe, and I didn't want to tell you at the beginning of this webinar. I'm just telling you at the end. that I am not the person who lives and dreams about technology. I'm truly not. I've just had to adapt and learn because different workplaces require different things. And I think one of the reasons I really value learning Google Suite is because I discovered with one community I worked with, it was all new Canadians and predominantly was an African group of people. And the Africans didn't have access to the Microsoft products, but they did have access to the free Google products. And so while they were still at home in Africa, they were able to learn digital technology skills that I hadn't learned yet because I never was forced to use Google. And then when they came to Canada as newcomers, they saw that what they knew was a little bit different than what the average Canadian was using. And in their new business startups, they're totally Google Suite. And so if I want to talk and interact with them, I just have to know the language that they speak, and the particular technical language they speak is Google. So it's just interesting that depending even on where people are from around the world and what they've had access to would be a reason they might use a different tool than what you normally like to use. And because you're a continuous learner, you're able to adapt and just add a couple more tools into your toolbox so that you can make your documents talk to their documents and so on. So that concludes our session for today. I'm going to take a second and go back and read some of our chat messages. Jessica's going to pop on with me, and I know you're going to give her a hand clap when you see her happy face. And she's going to bring up some questions for us to answer.
Absolutely. And we do have a few. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. I changed my headset, so I wanted to make sure you're good. All right. Wow. You know what? This has been an amazing workshop. I know that we've been here 3 days, and we've committed to the 3 days, and with what I've been able to hear and just take in, I can't wait to really try the tools that you suggested and really work with stuff. So thank you so much. Let's get to the questions here. We've got a few of them. So why don't I start at the beginning here? So the first one is, and I'll play it. It's from Anne Gray, and we have, how much is additional file storage with Google? How much is additional storage?
It's pretty cheap. I think there's 4 levels of what you could subscribe to. I personally have been using Google for about 5 years, and I don't have to pay anything for mine.
Okay.
And maybe there's a trick I could show you about that actually. I am going to screen share and show you guys something because it's going to keep your file storage down and it's going to answer another question. Okay. So if you don't mind, give me a second to just call something up. But the other part of that is if you did subscribe, you're looking at starting at about $5 a month. And for small businesses, it's like $30 a month if you pay all year. It's pretty cheap, but the average user wouldn't pay any more than $5 a month. I think it's $3.99 for the average thing.
Excellent.
I want to show you something to help with that. So maybe pop up the next question, Jessica, while I open this up.
You do that. Okay, and the next question is, all right, I'll play this one. I like those tips and tricks from Google Docs and wonder if you have a favorite tool you find yourself using from those.
Ooh la la. I love keyboard shortcuts. I feel like they're my fave. And I probably love how the images work. So I find it super, super easy to modify and crop and do all that with images. Probably those are my 2 go-tos.
Okay. Do you want to do the next one?
I'll do. Oh, I see. I was going to screen share, but I can't while you have the Q&A up. So
there you go.
Okay. So let's see.
Okay, and I'm gonna.
Okay, so let me find it. There we go. Jessica, you have your audio on, correct?
Yes, do you want me to turn it off?
No, I want to hear you because
Okay.
I'm doing it differently this time. So you can see my art collection spreadsheet.
Yes.
Okay. So when I'm in Drive, it will always tell me how much storage space I have available. So over on the left, I have 3.5 gigs out of 15 used. I just wanted to mention that if I wanted to get rid of something, I can right click on that file and remove it and put it in the trash. When that document is sitting in trash, two things happen. One is it's just moving out of my Drive view and it's there for a rainy day until I permanently delete it. This looks a lot like a recycle bin on your desktop. So it's there and you would need to choose it again and delete forever. If I have a million things in trash, I could go up here and choose empty trash and get rid of all my million things. The reason this is important to know what's in your trash occasionally, maybe once in a while, just go look, is because this counts towards your storage. So I don't keep my trash full of stuff because those 29 bytes, those would be counted towards my storage. The other reason I don't keep it there relates to yesterday's conversation, that when I delete a file that I've shared with someone, it disappears from my view and moves into my trash. So it moves in here. And at that point, the person I've shared it with can still work on it. It's not totally gone from them until I empty my trash. So at this point, I would choose to delete that forever. I do get a warning that it can't be undone, but I would do that because then it would keep my storage space down and it would keep others from wanting to collaborate with me further. And then I might not know that they're still working on a document that I left in the bin 100 years ago. So.
Right, that's exciting. And yeah, another thing too is that if you trash it and then you need it again, at least you can find it without ever removing it. So just before I go on to the next questions, I just want to bring your attention to the chat bar where there's a URL code for the post assessment. So if you could take a few moments to just to click on that URL, it'd be greatly appreciated. And then just save it. And after the webinar today, and when we're done our questions, then you can fill that out. It only takes a few moments. Thank you. So I'm going to move on to the next questions. I'm going to try and move on to the next question. Sorry, wrong screen. All right, so I have this one. At what point would you encrypt a sensitive file? How easy is that to do?
At what point is such a company specific question, right? The whole PAPITA Act and our compliance to it, that has to be a company policy. I
Yeah.
feel like if I'm ever dealing with anything that's someone's personal information, even their name, even when people give us their full name, they're trusting us with something that they may not give to anyone else. So I would kind of say all the time, maybe you'd want to encrypt that, but that would have to be company-wide. How easy is it to do? I don't actually use that a lot. I'd have to go back and revisit that. It is easy to do. I just can't walk you through it right at this moment.
Okay.
But that's a good question, especially even if you're choosing to file share and collaborate with someone. You might not have permission from your department to be able to share that document even with another department. And I know in the case of education, this is huge in the school system. Like we can't share a MET number, we can't share a middle name, like that stuff is 100% private. So yeah, please dig into the encryptions and what that would look like for you.
Excellent. Wonderful. Let's move on. So can we use the Google search with our own pictures to find people that Google is not familiar with? Thank you, Anne.
Yeah, I think if I understand Anne's wording there, she's thinking that maybe someone doesn't have a Google account, but they do show up in our photo roll. And absolutely, it's kind of creepy actually. I don't I don't appreciate that this is a thing. But um, I could go into a crowd. I could take a picture of 50 people in the crowd, and I can load that picture into Google Drive. And within there, Google will crop around every single person's face. And if I do a search by person, it'll just show me all these faces. And I can click on that face and it'll show me where else they appear in all of my pictures and all of my files. So imagine what they're doing with facial recognition outside of our drive. Staggering. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yes, absolutely. They don't need a Google account to be found. You just pick the face of who you're looking for and it'll show up.
Excellent. All right. What do we got? How do you use zip extractor to open a picture in Google Docs? I've tried and I get an error from Josie.
I'm not sure if I would try that inside the doc. I think I would be trying that outside in the file management area, so in my Google Drive or right from when I open the email. That's where I would be using the zip extractor for that. I do want to point out one thing about our slide. I think we maybe have run out of time with our
Mm-hmm.
Q&A. I want to be mindful. It's 12:02 and you're probably
Oh,
hungry.
oh,
So
my
just
goodness.
just lastly, my husband always calls YouTube his university. He goes there to learn everything. And so there's always YouTube University. There's always in your Google search bar just saying, how do I blah, blah, blah. And all these things come up. Google has its own whole support center. You could just type support.google.com. You'll get their whole thing. They have videos and so on. I don't find them the most helpful, to be honest. I love the YouTubers who show you how to do stuff. So feel
Yeah,
free to dig in, and some of your questions you'll find out there also online.
absolutely. Uh, okay, do we have time? I'm going to answer the next question and that's it. So someone had asked a question not related to this. So this is why I'm jumping in. And why is Anytime platform versus Zoom? We use Anytime because they have a little bit more security. With Zoom, I understand that someone can hijack your meeting. So this is what we don't want when we deliver training. Or we have coaching sessions, which has a different platform in itself. This is a webinar platform. So this is why we use any meeting. I read anytime, any meeting instead of Zoom. It's just because it's just more secure and works well with what we're doing for Workplace Education Manitoba. So do you want my last question if I can find it? No, I can't find it.
No, I think
Sorry.
so. Just one closing
Yeah,
comment. I see I've received a private message just about recordings. We don't have the
yeah.
recordings set up at this time. I'm sorry about that. You'd have to suffer through another webinar. And then, of course, because you're all Wemians, please help Jessica and I, and please do that jot form
Yes,
immediately after, like even right now. Click on that
yes,
link on the left-hand side in the chat. You just click on that and it's going to open. If it doesn't open automatically for you, just copy that and paste it in to
yes,
another tab. And if you can do that for us right away when it ends,
yeah.
I think Jessica's going to bake brownies for you all in Winnipeg. And
Oh, you poor people.
but you all know we have to measure everything, so please
Oh,
help us. And thank you so much for being with us today. I hope you have an awesome day and an awesome Mother's Day to all your mamas out there.
yes, absolutely. So some people have filled out the jot form that was offered. I'm also going to send it in the URL that it also sent, but please just take a moment to click on it and fill it out. I'd like to thank Workplace Education Manitoba. I'd also like to thank Rochelle Amy for doing her wonderful presentation today. She is absolutely amazing, and we have learned a lot. I'd also like to thank the participants as well for participating, giving their energy, and really coming together to learn today. I'll just a few more seconds and then I'll end the webinar. So please download that jot form. And thank you for all the questions and information. Also, you can send your workbook. I know that I had put a link in here earlier and you also received the day 3 workbook, but if you need it sent into the Interlake West Center, please do so. And I'd like to thank everyone for being here and thank you for enjoying the Google Suite. Have a wonderful day and